Thanks all for inviting me over, and it's a great honor and nice presentation. See, I come from academic background, and the beauty of it is I don't have anybody sitting on my head like leading analytics group that you need to do this. So I kind of work whatever I like and whatever makes sense to me. So I will try to separate out a couple of things which I have been working on at work. One, because today it started more on social value creation, and my role recently in the United Nations is to bring big data and analytics for social value creation. So let me just highlight some of the things which we are doing, particularly in India on that, and then I'll move on to my experience in the commercial space. So very recently we got involved on in a flood situation. So there was a requirement came from Government of India when Jammu Kashmir flood happened, and the basic idea was, can you tell us about the disease spread? Or think about the ideas like the flood happened and you want to put a medical camp. Where do you optimally locate it? So that most of the people can figure out. So some of these questions came, and it came to IMB also. So the director invited me and said, can you do something? It was a wonderful problem, but it's a very hard problem to deal with. So we started thinking how to do, and then I figured out that the best option is to go and grab the mobile data. The penetration of mobile in India is so huge. So that's the only way. That can I map the mobile calls, what before the flood happens and when the flood is actually happening, and that can tell me how the displacements are happening. Right? So it took me about 20 to 25 meetings with some government officials, with all Airtel, Vodafone and those guys, to convince that there is a corporate social responsibility coming in and give me the data. Of course, I didn't ask for the individual CDR data, but the aggregate level data. So what we did then, and it's still work in progress, is kind of make the networks from the mobile calls happening on the frequency and the locations they are in, and we can pretty well map how the displacements is happening with the human moving during the flood along different, and you put it on the map. Then you can see how the displacements are happening, where people are converging the most, and you can figure out several things like medical camp, that risk of disease spreading around which area, what kind of disease come in. So this is something which we are working on. That's one. Then there is another project on in Delhi on the crime rate, right? So what we are doing now is kind of taking the data. Luckily, they have good data compared to in general. Data from last about 12 years. And trying to churn the data to come up with an app so that anybody, let's say, around 7 p.m. download that app and can hit the zip code, and immediately it will pop up which roads at that moment where he or she wants to go is most safe, which road with what probability there can be a crime happening based on the historical data. Even we are trying to connect with somebody going on the metro and can hit that app and then can see that the particular metro station he or she is getting down, how many autos are there, and the Delhi police is working on connecting those mobile numbers of the auto driver. So you can pretty well connect with the auto driver who will take you to your location right sitting in the train. You get down, you get that auto driver, and all you need to do, put the number of the auto driver, and it will automatically transport to the Delhi police server. So these are some of the things. There is also some work going on in the financial inclusion. I was yesterday making a talk in Delhi on Bill Gates Foundation about how analytics can be helpful. So we are developing a geospatial mapping, particularly on UP and Bihar, on figuring out how many, let's say, mobile coverage are there. If you go to South Bihar, when you do the geospatial mapping, you see that the medical facilities are not that good compared to if you move towards Patna and all those. So these dots connect data, of course, but then this also connects on the policy making as well as on the social value creation. The problem with this, some of these financial inclusion are quite challenging actually. For example, you can think that Coca-Cola goes to the furthest corner of the country, but not our financial products. So why that is happening? So that's some of the questions comes up. The other problem is that India financial inclusion mainly aimed for the underprivileged, and the analytics kind of fails if you don't take the temporal aspect in place. So when we had first built this software with Bill Gates Foundation, the problem was it was very good when we did on the historical data. When you are going to predict it, it's not working. So it was challenging. Then we figured out that there is a dynamism happening. So what happens is, let's say you have a slum here, right here in some spot A, and you come up with some policy which will help these people in this particular point A. And because government policy implementation takes time, let's say it takes 6 to 1 year. By the time government comes back to do something to this area, there is an industry happened some 20 kilometers down from here, and the population has moved. So the entire picture changes. So this is predominantly happening in India because it's developing every corner, and the population which you want to cater to is moving. So then we have to go back to the drawing board and make the algorithm more, instead of just spatio-temporal. So some of these are happening, and for social value creation, the way I see from my experience, the most important tool for India is actually the mobile data. Because of the penetration and because it can tell you the truth and you can get it immediately. Now, obviously there is roadblocks, because why does this mobile company share the data with you? That problems are there. But most of the times what we found from my experience, and some other countries are doing, UN is also pitching more and more by saying that they are using a hell lot of mobile data in Africa. Sri Lanka is doing, for example, even Sri Lanka has gone to that extent that even for figuring out where do I put my bus stop, they use the mobile data to figure out, starting from the morning till the evening, where people are coming from, where the maximum call concentrations are happening, how much time. So they figure out that, okay, this is the place where half an hour between 8 to 8:30 maximum call concentrations are happening. So that means whatever I want to do should be around this place. How do you know this? Because of the mobile data. So their government has come up with a rule now that the mobile companies have to give to the government these aggregate level data which they can use. And Sri Lanka has gone way far ahead. There is an NGO called Larnacia which is doing wonderful work there. So some of these are, it's also coming on the smart city in the PMO's office. So there was some presentation we made. So this is some social value creation is fundamental to it, but the problem with social value creation using analytics, the way I see, is the awareness and how do you do it? Because most of the times the companies doesn't see the value obviously to it. So how do you communicate these? The toolkits are there. You can do wonders, but how do you communicate? For example, this Delhi crime rate we are doing, Airtel, it took us for a while to convince them to put their data and as well as their expertise in place to make this app, right? So this is one angle which I wanted to bring in, and there is some experience obviously on the commercial side. There is plenty, as all of you told, but some of the things which can bridge the gap between the commercial as well as social value creation is something which is picking up now, is the healthcare. So there is a huge amount of initiatives is going on in US as well as it's coming to India on the healthcare analytics. So more and more hospitals like Fortis and all those are getting interested, starting from very simple thing. How do I resource optimize? So I may have 100 nurses, but do I employ them? It's a typical call center kind of optimization. Do I employ them or deploy them every day, or do I deploy them more on Monday between 6 to 9? So what is my time logs where I can put more nurses, less nurses, and so on and so forth, doctors also. So this is a supply chain analytics, more of a resource optimization. There is more to it in the sense that it's more and more hospitals are coming together in US, obviously it's there, it's in India also, that our several diseases are very much correlated. So your blood pressure, your heartbeat, as well as your sugar, and so many markers which are correlated, and when you go and check up, you kind of get tested on all of these. Now think about, I collect all this data, put it in one server, and then I run some predictive algorithm, and I come out by saying, okay, if this person has a blood pressure like this, then he is more likely. So I go and give a call to this person and say, why don't you come? You haven't checked up this particular aspect of your body last 6 months. You are more vulnerable. Come ahead, come ahead. We'll do a checkup and we'll see how are you. Right? So for hospital, it's very good because you have a feel-good factor. So your loyalty increases. At the same time, for the person, it's very good because we are in a busy world. Not many times we think that this is going to be, I remember it and all those things. So more and more hospitals are, as well as insurance agencies, in India it's slowly coming, it's coming on that angle. The same way you can see that Obama recently said that any hospitals will be penalized if there is a recurrence of admission with a certain duration, right? So if a patient is getting admitted more than 2 times within a year, there is something wrong. So what happens is, how do I predict the average length of stay of a patient? Now it's good for the hospital also, because if the average length of stay I predict well, then I can figure out when this bed will be vacant and when I can have another patient comes in. And it's good for the patient also, because nobody likes to stay over for that. So there is a lot of, this is where health analytics is coming in, where you see a commercial aspect to it as well as a bridging of the social value. And then some of the other things which I have been doing, like for example, look at the vegetable market in India. So there is a lot of wastage happening, there is cold storage problems and all those. Can I on a daily basis predict my demand? I talked with a few folks in Spencer and they were saying that we are making profit, but we have a huge wastage every day. So how do I reduce that, right? So that again relates to food security and all of this comes in, because nobody wants to waste. But then the problem with this kind of, when it comes to the commercial aspect, is the quality of the data. So when you look at a particular company's loyalty card, remember when you go to a restaurant and before you give the bill, they give you a form to fill up whether you like the restaurant and so on and so forth, right? There's 4 or 5 questions there. Almost never we fill up it right. So what happens is, basically we are responsible for making the data go bad, and in return we don't get the value. So the same thing happening most of the times when this Reliance Mart or Spencer, what happens is customer doesn't fill out the data well. So when they want to figure out whom do I do the promotion, when do I do the promotion, which locality I go and do the promotion, they really don't know, because the data is not that well. All they have is probably an email ID and a phone number. That also can be wrong actually. So analytics is there, but in India one of the problem, as you guys are also saying, the quality of the data. So the more and more we tell ourselves that if I give proper information, then it will come back to me in some value, then that awareness is needed. Of course there are ways, like in this case we are putting a crawler in social media and trying to match the email ID with whatever available online and coming back with the imputed way, whether the person is male, female, what age group, which locality. But this is the hard way, right? So some of these, banking industry probably in my experience is the most advanced analytics user, mainly because the data quality is good. See, when it comes to finance, we provide correct data. When you go to the bank, I don't think we do dilly dying, right? We provide the correct data. So banking industry is the main beneficiaries, and it's coming more standardized now, banking analytics, although there is some scope. I see, for example, a few months back, somebody asked me from a banking industry that I know how to do cross-sell, upsell. There is no brainer now. I know whom to sell. If somebody has a car loan, I know whom to sell my home loan. But when economic downturn happens, can you tell me at that time who are my profitable customers? Now that's a little tough problem, right? Because in general the standardized analytic tools does well when you have some information. But how do I figure out who are my profitable customer or whom can I do more business when economy is down? So these are some of the things for banking industry is struggling now, although they are much more way ahead in terms of analytics in general, like how do you cater products for generation, new generation, which are tech savvy. There are, MasterCard is doing some project with us, and they are saying, okay, my new customer age group has gone down to somewhere 24 to 29. They are the maximum user compared to 1 decade back when it was 32 to 38. Alright, but this generation all they use is mobile texting. So how do I do business with them? And they are trying to figure out, coming up with a recommender system so that let's say I want to give you a discount on the movie ticket, but probably you will go to the movie on Saturday. There is no point of giving the discount option on Monday. You will forget it. So I want to give you either on Friday or on Saturday, but how do I know that you are more likely to go to the movie? Okay, so pretty much you can see that it needs to pool the entire database, which is big volume. Then the entire analysis needs to be done within fraction of seconds. So the velocity is too fast. And then it has to reach to you probably 4 or 5 hours before you are making a decision of going to the movie. So it's real time. Otherwise, you are losing your business. So the entire structure of big data, which we call 4V, volume, velocity, veracity, and value, all are there. You have huge volume, the entire database. Think about Bombay. ICICI Bank is trying to do the same thing. Bombay, pull out the entire database. Huge velocity because they are going to the unstructuredness of the data, social media, and what you have done, your history, to figure out what is your next move within like 2 hours, and then the value, what value that is bringing to you, right? So these are some of the things which I'm working, so I thought I'll just explain to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ghosh. I think that would be a very interesting segue into our next session, which is on smart cities, and I'll request Kasturi Bhattacharya to set up her laptop. While we are doing so, just quickly summarize what we heard the two speakers say. Again, opportunity around analytics is enormous. The opportunity to influence public policy and public distribution of scarce resources, which is something which is a challenge in India, is an area where analytics can have a big play. Data quality is always going to be a challenge. I remember doing one of my first projects in India where it was entered that a person was a graduate of IIMs and was earning 1,000 rupees a month. So obviously either the person was not an IIM grad or there were a couple of zeros missing in that figure. So the data quality continues to be a challenge. The other thing though is that the sources of information, as Professor Ghosh said, the entire mobile data which can be tapped into, just waiting as this is getting set up, and the healthcare sector. There are certain very interesting sources of data, and I have mentioned this before, a website or a movement called quantifiedself.com, where actually people are putting up their medical measurements on a regular basis in the web. This is a movement which started out in the US and is there now in Bombay and Bangalore, and which can actually provide an enormous source of data for some of the healthcare analytics. Set, Kasturi? Okay, so over to Kasturi for smart cities.
Thank you, Rajesh. So, we've talked a lot about, predictive data and proactive data. And when we talk about smart cities, why aren't we not calling it a modern city? It could be infrastructurally modern. The word smart actually brings in that element of knowledge. Now, why are people all across the globe, including in India, we are talking about smart cities and not modern cities? And one of the key reasons is that the urban living today, and with the digitization and the digital generation that has come in, we want information in our hands. We talked about the devices and the connectivities. We are also wanting real-time information in order to take decision. We talked about decision making several times. So I'm going to just quickly touch upon a few of those elements. Again, people are choosing, it's a reality that people are choosing urban living. there is, as it is predicted, that 9 billion people by 2050 will be living in cities. And with those comes the challenges which erstwhile we had congestion on road, or citizen-centric services, or simple things like our lifestyle, you know, the kind of time we want to spend at work, the kind of time we want to spend at home, everything are becoming cloistered. Is being smart, designing, policymakers have to take a stand on how they design the next generation of cities in order to offer the citizens the quality of life that they are looking at. So we have diversity of diversity of challenges. We have, you know, issues with urban planning, we have issues with job, transportation system is clogged, our energy resources are becoming scarcer and scarcer by the day. Health, Professor Ghosh already addressed the health issue. So coming to that, is designing the next generation of cities in a smart way, which offer us predictive decision making, will that reduce to certain extent some of the challenges that we have and lead us to proactive problem solving? One of my esteemed speakers also addressed a very serious point of public safety and security, which is becoming a huge threat day by day. So let's look into some of those things. So what is a smart city? It's a city's ability to harness proactive and predictive information and facilitate that connection between businesses, people and public services to build services around them. Which means that, you know, as a citizen, if I am stuck in a traffic or if I'm stuck in an emergency situation, I should have that help right on hand, possibly predictively and proactively. Somebody will already know I am in trouble and would be, you know, using a means to either, you know, get me out of that situation or, you know, providing a solution to that situation. Now that is the smart city planning. Connecting lives, and we've heard about connected vehicles and intelligent transport solutions. What does it essentially mean? It essentially means that the elements that we use every day, which means if I am traveling from my work, from my home to my work, I'm using the roadways. I would like to have minimal congestion, so I would like to have options. I would also like to have, you know, my GPS, you know, tracking systems. And in cases when I'm renting a car, it is much more, it also links it to security, where I would know my road and traffic structure. I would also like to have services at my fingertips in terms of emergency. If there is an emergency situation handling happening at a place, I should be already predictively knowing it. So what it essentially means that I am connecting diverse aspects of so far siloed lifestyles, and of course the other elements of entertainment and theft prevention and things go with it. However, the point is, we are in our next, the world that we are living in, we are connecting diverse lifestyle needs and sources of information and data and bringing it to one place and giving it and providing it on a end device. Which could be, you know, we talked about cell phone and mobility, how important. It could be a telematics device, it could be something that is fitted to your car, or it can even be things like, where I've not even addressed, fleet management solutions, where the city itself is planning for it. Now, so what is it? I mean, a smart city is actually, in our world, a networked city. Basically, you're bringing diverse aspects of lives, you know, you're aggregating the information, you are going through that information, making some logical sense and pushing the data to the relevant actors and the relevant users. So police may be using it in a certain way, health practitioner and an ambulance driver may be using it in a certain way, emergency response system or your control systems may be using it in a certain way. You as the citizen of that city will be using it in a certain way. So bringing all those together, it's actually a conjoint of people, services and devices is what is going to be shaping our next generation of smart cities. Now, having said that, anything, even connected buildings, connected buses, connected cars, connected meters. I talked about the energy and home solutions. So it essentially is going to, we talked about, I think Dr. Mitra also mentioned about the 50 billion connected devices. What are these connected devices at the end of the day without the knowledge and the data that fuels the intelligence behind it? So, which means if I had to do remote patient monitoring, we just heard about it, if I had a connected bus and fleet services in my city, I need smart education, smart fleet control and smart meters, connected cars, connected homes. There is this intense volume of real data processing that is required in order to fuel any one of these intelligent solutions. That's going to be, that's going to shape every citizen's life for the future. So the ability to harness real-time, highly granular data across a wide range of city operations and services is changing the way we manage and experience the urban environment. And this is why we talked about big data, real-time data, I think Hadoop, HANA, we've been addressing a lot of things, but this is becoming very critical for our livelihood and our lifestyles. There is a lot of data-aided urban design and planning discussions that are happening globally. And a lot of municipalities and cities are actually actively involving universities, corporates and research centers in order to help them with the design and planning of the smart city. I'm not going to go into those details, but I'm just going to kind of touch upon a few things in what kind of knowledge modeling and decision support systems that we require. So we can extract patterns of human mobility. Dr. Ghosh, Professor Ghosh, you addressed that, to trigger sustainable behavior for public system. My moderator has given me a 2 minutes heads up, so I'm going to quickly. So some of the things, for sustainable behavior of public safety, social care, predictive analysis of traffic and transport systems, response to unexpected, event handling, emergency response handling and management, planning of events. So with that, I would like to kind of show a very short video of something that Mr. Dasgupta, you mentioned about Australia. I'm going to show a case study on Sydney where an emergency case was handled, but it was not just the emergency case. How it permeated and the information was sent to the entire city, the citizens of the city, as well as to the aviation industry where flights were supposed to land.